Hello everybody, my name is Kara. Today I am here with my November wrap-up, minus the books I read in Readathons. Once I have posted my Readathon wrap-up, I will try to link that in the description below. So the first book I picked up in November is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. Now this is the first book in a contemporary trilogy, and as you've probably heard, it follows our main character, Lara Jean, who writes letters to all of the boys that she's ever been in love with as sort of a way of cleansing herself of these feelings. And she seals them, addresses them, puts them in a hat box, and just leaves them. She's never planning on sending them out. But one day, these letters do get sent out. And we sort of follow her as she sees the consequences of that. Because one of the people who gets a letter is the person she's currently in love with. Now, this book completely took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. I had heard that Lara Jean was an incredibly frustrating main character. I'd heard that she was really immature, and I can understand why people feel like that. For the most part, I actually liked Lara Jean. Like, I feel like she definitely read as a younger teenager, but I feel like some of the things she worries about, even if they're irritating or they seem silly to people older than her, I think like I can look back and remember being worried about some of those things in high school. It was realistic. And I also really loved the fact that all of the side characters, particularly her family members, felt so real. I feel like her family felt like a family you could really know in real life. And that sounds kind of vague or generic, but that doesn't happen to me a lot when I read contemporaries, and the fact that it happened in this book was really surprising to me because, again, I wasn't expecting too much from the characters in this book. But I just think that some of the things that Jenny Han writes about, like the messy parts about loving your family and about being close to siblings and all of this, like some of the things she writes are just so spot on, and that was one of the big reasons I enjoyed this. And also, this book has the fake dating trope in it, which I have to admit I am a total sucker for that. As you can tell, I really, really liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. And then the next book I finished was At Face Value by Emily Franklin. Now this is a contemporary sort of reimagining of Cyrano de Bergerac, and it's also gender flipped. So Cyrano is Ciri, our female protagonist, and Roxanne is this guy named Rox, and Christian is Ciri's sort of friend, Layla. This was my lowest rated book of the year so far, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I was incredibly disappointed. I loved the play Cyrano de Bergerac. I read that recently, a few months ago, and I adored it. And this was just, it didn't have any of the things I loved about the play. There was no humor or wit like you expect from Cyrano de Bergerac. Ciri as a main character was pretty unbearable. The side characters were non-existent. The writing wasn't that great. I'm going to link my Goodreads review down below if you want slightly more extensive thoughts on it, but I really don't recommend this book. I gave it 1.5 stars, and I'm still upset about this book. The next book I picked up was The Pearl of the Soul of the World by Meredith Ann Pierce, and this is the third and final book in the Dark Angel trilogy. So in the first book we follow our main character Ariel, who is kidnapped by a dark angel, this sort of evil creature. And the first book we follow her as she tries to survive there and finds out about this quest and what she can do to rescue herself and a group of other women who have been taken by this dark angel. I had very mixed feelings about this conclusion. I did a video review on the entire trilogy, and there's a spoiler-free section and then a spoilery kind of rant at the end. There were some things I liked about this book. I thought the world building continued to be really interesting. I loved some of the side characters we got to see, but I feel like the ending and the way the ending related to the other books in the trilogy left a lot to be desired, and it was incredibly frustrating. So I still really recommend the first book in the trilogy. I gave that one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it because I think that as a fantasy series, the plot is a pretty unique exploration of kind of a generic quest idea, but I did not love this last book. I gave it 3 stars. The next book I finished in November was Let the Storm Break by by Shannon Messenger, and this is the second book in the Let the Sky Fall trilogy. And I will say I did enjoy this one more than the first book. I really liked the decisive direction that the plot was taking, and Vane was actually a lot less irritating to me because I think I knew what to expect from him going into this book. We finally have real side characters, and I am so excited about that. Actually, my favorite characters in this series are Solana and Gus. Gus is one of the other sort of wind spirit guardians, and Solana is actually the girl who Vane was supposed to marry. And I think that those two are especially interesting characters, and I'm excited to see what happens to them. The relationship between Vane and Audra is just uninteresting to me. Like I said, even though I didn't find Vane as annoying, I still don't like him as a main character. I gave it 2.5 stars. And I think I am going to finish the trilogy because I'm interested enough in Gus and Solana. And finally, the last book I read at the beginning of November before I started the readathons I participated in was The Jane Austen Project by Kathleen A. Flynn. We follow two characters, Liam and Rachel, who are from the future, and they are part of a group who is sent back in time to sort of recover important items or to do research on important things in the past. And their project is the Jane Austen Project. They are sent back to Regency England to retrieve a manuscript from Jane Austen that has basically gone missing. But it turns out that she actually did complete it. And if they can go back and retrieve this novel, then they're supposed to do that and bring it back to the future. I did enjoy this book. I thought the aspects of Regency life were really interesting and well done. I loved Jane Austen as a character. Like, once Rachel and Liam meet her in the past, like, everything just really started coming together, and I thought Kathleen Flynn did a really good job of making Jane Austen as witty and sarcastic and endearing as you would hope from such a beloved literary figure. The parts where I thought this book kind of fell short were some plot elements and like world building things. So this future that Rachel and Liam are from is sort of vaguely post-apocalypse, and that was not described very much, which I was actually okay with because I don't really tend to gravitate towards dystopian fiction, so I didn't really mind that as much. But it did start to bother me near the end of the book because the resolution and sort of like the explanations of the time travel and all of that were all tied up at the end, and it was done very sloppily, in my opinion. There were some big things that happened at the end of the book that were sort of hand-waved as sort of like, oh, that's just how time travel works and it's fine, everything's resolved, it's fine. And I also wasn't as invested in Rachel and Liam's romantic relationship as I hoped to be. And I think a big part of that is because Rachel is our narrator. She's our main character, and it's a first-person story. And she was really hard to connect with. Anytime something would happen with Liam or something important with Rachel's past would come up, it sort of didn't have the impact that I was looking for because Rachel herself was not really a fully fleshed out character. She was a little frustrating because she would make these decisions and she would do these things that was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you doing that? And maybe if we had had more character development for her or like backstory, maybe I would have understood why she did some of these things. But as it was, it just sort of read like she would make these really dumb decisions because the author told her to. I gave this book 3.5 stars. These are the 5 books I read in the first part of November. You guys will be seeing another wrap-up for me that covers Tome Topple and another readathon that I sort of just impulsively decided to participate in.